Okay, Mr. Phobes here. I'm going to do two uh, recordings here to show you how to get your uh, photo images to scale into this 50% um, template that's in Illustrator. So the first one is going to be showing how to edit the photos, and the second one is how to get it into Illustrator. It's important to have your measurements of your shoe with you. So my shoe was 11 and a half inches wide. It was 4.5 inches high and 4.5 inches wide. Okay, so I've downloaded the photos that I'm going to be used to my desktop. All right, so launch Photoshop. I have 2017. Um, and if you have 2017, it'll look like this. If it's 2016, it'll look a little bit different. But just go open. Okay, so we're going to open an existing photo. So I think the best thing to do is start with the elevation photo. So I didn't pre-crop these in my phone, and that's fine. I'll just do it all in Photoshop. So I'm going to open it. Okay, and it comes in and it's ready to crop. Now, a couple of things that are going to be useful here. Um, let's make sure that we're working in the workspace called Essentials. So if you go over here, um, check that it's Essentials. We don't need to be in 3D graphic motion, any of this stuff. Just be in Essentials, that's fine. Okay. A couple of other things that are going to be helpful. Um, go to View and make sure rulers are set. And I would actually, to start off, I would take the snap off. And that's going to be, sometimes the snap is a little bit annoying when you're trying to grab that. And then in Windows, make sure that your layers are set and that your tools are set. Um, you can have history if you want, but the most important thing is obviously the tools and that your layers and that we can see what's going on in the different layers. All right. If you're new to Photoshop, you can set different values you can work with. I like working in this mid-tone gray. You might like working and some people like working in black, which is really useful if you're doing video stuff. But I like working in a mid-tone gray. All right. So you can decide if you want to set that. All right. This is very simple. This is great. All right. So uh, I know that my shoe is 11 and a half inches wide and it's 4.5 inches high. I'm going to go to the crop tool and I want to make sure the panel is set at width times height times resolution. If there's any numbers in here, just clear them right now. Okay, we don't care what the numbers are right now. And then this is really important. We want to drag the crop dimensions right to the extent of the image. This has got to be pretty darn accurate because we're going to base our measurements off of this. Okay. All right. Once you've got it, go ahead and crop it. Okay. Now, another thing we should probably do immediately is just to reduce the file size, let's go to image mode and we're going to go to grayscale and just say discard. Okay. Now, I think another thing that would be really useful once you're at this point, let's make a copy of the background. Um, Maybe not so much for this project, but as we're working on other projects, you're going to see that it's going to be much more editable. See the little lock? The background is locked and some things we can't do. So one way to do it is just to drag it to this little icon next to the trash and it makes another layer. Another way to do it is to go to layer and just go duplicate layer. You could do that. Another way to do it is to, on the Mac, have it selected, hit Control, and then right click and then duplicate layer. So there's multiple ways of doing that. You're going to find that in uh, all the Adobe programs. There's multiple ways of getting through things. I'm going to turn the background layer off. Okay, now let's go and look at the image size. So we go to image and then go to image size. Okay, so we're going to change the resolution to at least 150. Doesn't need to be much bigger than that, but we want the inches. Let's set it to 11.5 4.5. Okay, now look at this. These are locked, they're linked together, so when you change one, the other one changes proportionally. All right. So we can see that the photo is slightly off because it should be 4.5. All right. So if we want to get it exactly correct, let's unlink the dimensions and then we're going to plug in the actual dimension 4.5 and then hit OK. So you probably couldn't see it, but it did slightly change this. So that took the distortion out of the photo. So now it's exactly 11.5 times 4.5, which is full scale. It's not half scale and it's not 150, it's full scale. Keep this because if you're going to work in 150 scale, you're going to want this. Now, I might want to make some adjustments to the image here. It's a little bit dark and we want to be able to see some of this detail. So let's go to Image and we'll go to Adjustments. And what we'll do is we'll go to Levels. And what comes up is a little thing called a histogram. This looks pretty good, but the sliders should be right at, so you can see as I move this in, the image gets lighter. And that actually may be more useful for what we're doing because it gives us more detail. You'll have to make that determination. This will make it a little, bump up the blacks. This is the midtones. So as we change this, it makes the midtones lighter or darker. I'm going to leave this like this, so it's a little bit lighter and it's easier to see. Okay, so there's one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to call it shoe. I could just call it shoe 1, and then I don't want to save it as a PSD file. I could, but there's different ways to save the file. If you save it as a JPEG, it'll compress it and you lose a little bit of the resolution. Not important for this. You could also save it as a PNG file, which doesn't do as much compression. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to save it as a PNG file, but you could save it as a JPEG, whatever you want. But I'm going to save it as a PNG file. So you can see it comes up, and I'm going to save it to my desktop. So I'm going to go Save. Okay, so there's one. So now let's open up the top view. So I'm going to go File, Open, and there it is. Okay, so one of the things that's important about what we're doing is that the orientation of the shoes have to be correct. They have to align. So obviously we need to rotate this. So we can do that now. I think what I'm going to do before I do anything is I'm going to go ahead and go to Mode, Grayscale, Discard. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of this. All right. I'm going to turn the background layer off. And then I'm going to go to Image, and I'm going to go to Image Rotation, and I want to turn it 90 degrees counterclockwise because we want it to line up with the first image. You'll see how that's going to work. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to crop to this. Okay, if for some reason it came off the camera as a little crooked, I can always rotate the cropping, or I can rotate the image in the crop tool so I get it aligned. Just like when we were doing our scale drawings, we can set up a center line there. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now I want to bring it right to the extents. So again, I have my snaps not on, and then I'm going to hit crop. All right, so now I want to go to image size. So one thing you should notice is this looks a little bit distorted. We're going to take care of that. So we're going to go to image size. And again, let's set the resolution to 150. So as we're working, let's make sure everything is the same resolution. And then the width. So I want to go back and relink the image size. So now I'm going to have to go back and re-enter the resolution. So I've relinked them. I'm going to make this 11.5, right? That's the length. And the height, which is actually the width, should be 4.5, right? And you see it's way too small. So I'm going to unlink this. And I'm going to make it 4.5. That looks better. It's not perfect, but it looks better because it looked a little too long, right? Because of the distortion. Okay, so I'm going to save this one. I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to call it Shoe 2. You can call it anything you want. Just keep it simple. Underscore 2. And again, I'm going to save it as a PNG file. And I'm going to save it to the desktop. Okay. Now, just to be sure, I'm going to open up the one that I had edited, and I want to make sure that the resolution is the same. Okay, so I'm going to go to image size. And see, the resolution is not the same, so I want to change it down to 150. They all have to be the same resolution for this to work. So they're all at 150. I'm going to go and relink these. I had to do that because the same problem. It was way too tall because of the distortion. So there we go. All right. Now the one thing I want to do, this one looks good. This one, one of the things I forgot to do was to adjust the values. So I'm going to go to Image Adjustment, and then I'm going to go Levels and bring this up. Okay. All right. So now you've got them all scaled. The next thing we're going to do after this, we've got them all saved to the desktop, is we're going to open them up in Illustrator. Okay, I'll see you in the Illustrator demo.